All right, this one is a really cool one to talk about. This is the Kase Knives Turbo, handmade by Roman Kase, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in Switzerland. It's super cool. It is plain Jane, okay? I have no problem with plain Janes. I have several plain Janes and always have, because sometimes you don't need to be flashy because the work speaks for itself. Okay. Not to say that people that put flashy stuff on it means their work is less. That probably came out wrong. But sometimes less is more. Okay. So let's dive into this thing. This is by Gary, my good friend, bought this. It's a grail knife of his that he told me I could carry, and I have. Told me I could cut with it, and I have. And I'm going to do some more cutting with it because, well, it just cuts amazingly. So let me get the specs out of the way real quick. 4 3/8 closed, 5 7/8, 3 1/4 inch blade. 0.011 behind the edge because this entirely full flat grind. The blade thickness starts out rather thin also at 0.147. Weighs in at 4.5 ounces. Runs on silicon nitrate ceramic bearings and silicon nitrate ceramic detent, which is super cool. Blade steel, S390. Yes, S390. I don't know much about it either, but it's hardened at 68 HRC because Roman actually heat treats his own stuff and he tests his own stuff to make sure. And what's kind of cool is, and here's some more specs about the knife. He actually heat treats and notes the washers, the pivot, the stop pin. You can see just, grade 5 clip, handmade in Switzerland, which is super cool. He has a really cool Instagram. So go check that out. I'll put a link down below for sure, where he shows, this knife as he's making it. And he shows some cutting test, sharpening, grinding, and he does some reels where he talks about why he does what he does. So rather than try to paraphrase all of that here, I would really encourage you guys to go check him out, give him a follow, and watch some of his reels because it's really interesting. So not only is he heat treating this, but he's cryogenically treating these as well, which if you're not familiar with, you freeze these things to sub crazy levels, -200-300 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. And it just really, it aligns the molecules inside of the steel to be even harder and stronger. I did that on some race car parts before, some gears and things like that. We would have some of our drivetrain stuff cryo-treated because it just made it some percentage stronger. Is it the end-all be-all? Maybe not. But yeah, it does increase it by some percentage. It may be relative, but like in the race car world, if you treat every single piece of the drivetrain, then the entire thing is just stronger. And that's what you have to do. You can't just treat one piece, So in the race car stuff, it's a problem because you end up treating everything. However, here, I don't know exactly all the parts and pieces that he cryo treats, but the blade for sure. And then it's in a molten salt bath tempering. I don't even know what that means exactly, but I figured I'd share with you. What is really cool is the grind on the blade. I love how he hand finishes that. And it's so kind of not mirror polished, but it's really not showing. It's not liking my lights very well. But this thing is super thin behind the edge. It is super sharp. Even Roman, when he was messaging me, he actually reached out to me before Gary did and said, "Hey, I'm sending you a knife from this guy, Gary. He wants me to send it to you. So I was like, oh, sweet. And he told me, he's like, look, be careful, it's sharp. And it is sharp. This is one of those knives that you're almost afraid to cut your steak with because you think you're going to cut the plate also. That's like how sharp it is. And I'm going to use like a paper towel cut thing with it here shortly when I finish using my paper towels, because I'm sure it will cut it very clean and slicey. Now, the one negative, one little pet peeve is the pocket clip. It's a little tight in and out of the pocket. And that's really a personal pet peeve of mine. And a lot of people I have heard as I've passed knives along to other people, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. The pocket clip works fine. So just because Dirk says a pocket clip doesn't work well, don't take that at its, like, just use that with a grain of salt. But yeah, I would like a little bit of more of a ramp. It is 3D milled clip and it's pretty tight. I wear jeans, like just normal Levi's, nothing fancy. Sometimes I wear like some Old Navy or, Banana Republic, but like they're all kind of same. But yeah, I love the pivot. Just looks really cool. It's a little bit different design. There is no steel lock bar insert. He has not gotten to that point. The other thing about this that I totally spaced until 6 minutes in, all handmade. I mean, it does say handmade in Switzerland, but there is no CNC. This is all manual tools, manual mill, things like that. So there's not deep pockets inside. He does engrave, like 3D engrave his logo. And I think on this side, it says made in Switzerland. And that is kind of, it's more than just engraved. It's like etched, it's like engraved in. So it's like deep and textured if you were to feel that, which I think is super cool. But yeah, so I kind of liken him to Phil Harvey over in the UK, where Phil Harvey has all manual mills, manual lathe, just hand tools, does a lot by drill press and things like that. And Phil Harvey, much like Roman, makes all the fixtures. And when he breaks something or he realizes he needs to do something different, he has to make a tool to hold the piece so that he can mill it. Like that to me is another level of sophistication, if you will. So I would like, if Dirk's opinion matters to Roman at all, I think a Turbo XL with like a 3.5 inch blade rather than a 3 1/4. I know it's only a 1/4 of an inch, but it does make a difference because this is, it feels good in my hand, but I think, and I've talked about this before, I think that it's a mental thing sometimes. Because sometimes like a 3-inch blade just works in my hand, but I feel weird carrying it because I think it's too small. So I really like this one. And I'm going to grab my other plain Jane that is one of my favorites also, which is also made, this is the Sharknivko Ryu, but this was also done with no CNC, all hand tools, hand mills and all of that from Edison. So it's actually, it's very similar, but different, right? But the beauty and the craftsmanship is just there on both of these. You don't need to have a lot of exotic materials. Blade centering is perfect. Like it's just great. The Ryu is much bigger, of course, much more neutral handle. Like they have their pluses and minuses, but you can't really go wrong with just a plain Jane tumbled titanium. I think this was Zerk blasted. But yeah. I have everything. I do have fancy stuff as well. But sometimes when I just want to go out and beat on stuff, Just take the plain ones. I think it's super cool. Roman did a video recently, a reel, where he took an S390 that was totally treated and he smashes it into an anvil 2 or 3 times. Had a little bit of deformation on the edge, but that's it. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, 68 HRC, it's going to be so brittle. But it's not, because he cryo treats it and does some other stuff. The way he finishes his steel, it is super tough, super strong. And Gary, congrats on this bad boy. So here it is with the Sharpie, with the small Spyderco Delica. We already showed you next to the Sharknivka Ryu. How about the RJ Martin? This is a bigger knife, but man, a turbo in about this size, roughly a 4-inch blade. Ooh, that might be something special. And what else do I got here? Like, you know, because yes, I do have some fancy stuff. How about the Hellraiser? One of the custom first 10 or 20 Black Death series Hellraisers with Damasteel blade and all of that. So yeah, I do have my fancy knives and I have my plain knives. I think there is room for both and everything in between in a collection. So let me know your thoughts on this. This is like the very first Swiss-made knife, other than like the Victorinox, but outside of that, this is the first custom Swiss-made knife I've had in hand, and I think it's pretty cool. Gary's gonna love it, and if Gary doesn't love it, well, maybe hit me up. Maybe I'll have you ship it back to me. I don't know, but yeah, cool knife. I think he did some really cool things. One thing I like is the hole here at the lock bar. A lot of people just radius it out, but some people just cut it straight, and I think that's kind of a weak point. So by having a hole here, that's kind of made it a stronger joint. So just little details there that I think is super cool. And Roman, thanks for sending this to me. And Gary, thanks for letting me check it out. Have a great day, all.